Hey everybody, Michael Bogart here. If you've been on Instagram, you might have seen the post I made about the experience that I had in New York last week on Thursday at the Rebbe's Oil, and the incredible blessing that I received and strength about my decision to leave Tower of Power in order to keep Shabbos, in order to keep Shabbat, the Sabbath. I want to start off by saying that this was not a impulsive decision. It was a decision that I've come to. It's honestly, it's been many years in the making, but it's a decision that I've done an awful lot of meditating and praying on, and I just felt like it was time. And on Thursday, last week, Thursday was Gimel Tammuz, which was the 29th anniversary of the Rebbe's ascension from this plane of existence to a higher plane of existence. And I won't. You can read the post. You can see what happened. Please do. And if you feel so moved, comment on it. But I want to give a very special shout out to Rabbi Shais Taub, who is the scholar in residence at Chabad of Five Towns, and all of his amazing video content can be found at www.soulwords.org. And I have here 2 new copies of his book that changed my life, God of Our Understanding, Jewish Spirituality and Recovery from Addiction. I've told many people, and the reason why I got these 2 is because I gave away my last copy. Over the years, I've probably given away at least 5 or 6 copies of this book. This book isn't just for Jews who are in recovery. It's for really anybody in recovery. And it's also not just for Jews who are in recovery. I would urge any Jew that's ever struggled with any kind of emotional issues, this should be on your bookshelf. And that probably means all of us. He really breaks it down beautifully. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Rabbi Taub for the beautiful posts that he made on Instagram about my experience at the Rebbe's Oil last Thursday on Gimel Tammuz. So I've received questions from, I'm guessing, mostly non-Jews, but maybe some Jews as well. Why would I leave Tower of Power, that's me by the way, to do this thing called Shabbos or Shabbat, and what does it mean? And you know, I have friends who are Jews, and they drive their kids to Little League practice on Saturday, and I don't understand. And so what I'm going to try to do in this video is try to explain the significance of what Shabbat means to me, how I understand it having to do with Jewish history, and why I'm doing this. A quick caveat: I am not a historian. I'm not a U.S. historian. I'm certainly not a Jewish historian, nor am I any kind of authority on Jewish halacha or Jewish law. But this is something that I've spent a great deal of time thinking about myself and coming to this decision. And so I've put things down in a way that hopefully you will understand, and this is how I can relate to it. So some of you may or may not know that in addition to the incredible career that I've had playing with Tower of Power and playing music, I also spent 20 years in the United States Navy. I retired from the United States Navy in 2019. Most of my time was spent playing trumpet in the Navy band. I also spent a couple of years as a substance abuse counselor at a residential treatment program for mostly dual addicted active duty service members who came back with combat PTSD and substance abuse issues. But anyhow, I did that work for a couple of years, but most of the time I played trumpet in the Navy band. So how I'm going to try to relate to this, hopefully some of you are veterans yourself, or you have veterans in your family, or you have military folks who have served in your family, so you might be able to understand where I'm going with this. And I took notes. Hopefully this isn't too boring. This is probably going to end up being a long video, so I'm just going to say thank you for sticking with me throughout this whole journey. So in 1798, the United States Constitution empowered Congress to, quote, provide and maintain a Navy, end quote. That's it. That established the United States Navy. That one line in the Constitution established the entire United States Navy. Okay, so what does it mean? Obviously, you know, it's pretty hard to build a Navy from just that one line. So what needed to be done had to be written down what's known as the Uniform Code of Military Justice, or UCMJ for short, and then also in addition to that, the Navy Regulations, or NAVREGs short. And what this is these are all the regulations that spell out all the details and rules pertaining to the day-to-day functioning of the United States Navy. Everything from ship construction to what uniform a sailor puts on in the morning, how a sailor's hair is supposed to look, found in the chapter on grooming standards, how the food on the ship is cooked, when chow times are, how a sailor is supposed to conduct him or herself on base or off base, found in the chapter on codes of conduct, or standards of conduct, sorry. In other words, it's a vast compendium of laws that when I raised my right hand and I took the oath of enlistment, I wasn't just saying, okay, I'm going to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, i.e. this one line in the Constitution that established the United States Navy, but I was also going to uphold all these additional rules and regulations that are found in the UCMJ and NAVREGs. When I raised my right hand and I took the oath, that was what I was undertaking. I couldn't say, you know, hold up just for a second before I do this. You know that little bit about having to work all the time? I don't know if I'm quite on board with that, or, you know, I think I'd like to actually have my hair long. Is it okay if I can do, you know, I couldn't do that. You know, it would be considered, you know, they would have told me, hey, get the heck out of here. You know, you're not fit to be a sailor. So what I want to do is I want to take you on a little bit of a thought experiment. Okay, so let's pretend for a moment that there was a group of sailors who decided that they wanted to steal a Navy ship, sail to some far off island somewhere, and then in order to fit in better with the island natives, they were going to have to get away and do away with vast chunks of the Uniform Code of Military Justice and vast chunks of Navy regulations. They wanted to adopt the native style of dress. They wanted to adopt certain behaviors to fit in more so that they wouldn't feel so like strangers, right? But they still wanted to call themselves the United States Navy. Seems kind of strange, bit of a stretch. Well, that's pretty much what happened about 150 years ago to Judaism in Germany. And let me just put it in perspective. 150 years is really just a few seconds ago in terms of Jewish history. It's a blink of an eye ago that this happened. For thousands and thousands of years, any Jew who identified as a Jew, when our ancestors raised their right hand at Mount Sinai and accepted the Torah, that means that for them and for their descendants, they not only accepted the one line in the Torah, which is in the Ten Commandments, which establishes the rules of Shabbat, where it says, 6 days you shall labor, and the seventh day shall be as a Sabbath to God, as Zikron Lama'aseh Bereshis, as a remembrance of the act of creation. That one line, that they were not only going to accept that, but then they were also going to accept all the rules and regulations that needed to come about to explain that. In other words, the Jewish Uniform Code of Military Justice, the Jewish Book of Naval Regulations, known as the Talmud. Sorry, it took me a second there. Okay, so basically, to kind of continue with this analogy that I'm going, this is the Torah, right? This is kind of like the Constitution. This is the Talmud. And this is kind of like the Uniform Code of Military Justice. This explains what's in here, okay? And for thousands of years, that was just the deal. If you identified as a Jew, you took all of this on. So as I started to explain, about 150 years ago, a group of Jews in Germany decided that they wanted to fit in more with polite German society. And in order to do that, they decided to do away with vast chunks of the Talmud, of these rules and regulations that were getting in the way of being able to be a good German citizen. Shabbat was one of the first things because it's the most restrictive and has a huge compendium of laws. In fact, an entire book this size is devoted just to the laws of Shabbat. Keeping kosher, the men all shaved their beards because German men didn't have beards. They wanted to fit in. And they adopted these manners of German manners to be able to fit in. Then they, then eventually they ended up having their own separate synagogues, and thus was born the Reformed, and then a short time after that, the conservative movements of Judaism. So that's why, and that they still wanted to identify as Jews. And it became very, very popular in the United States, and up until post-World War II was the primary form or way that a Jew identified in the United States. After World War II, however, when many people were actually predicting that Orthodox Judaism, as it came to be known, whereas before it was just Judaism or being a Jew, many predicted that post-World War II it was going to completely disappear, and that Reformed and conservative Judaism would become the way that Jews identified and expressed themselves. This has not been the case. It's actually been completely the opposite. Numbers, I don't have any quote, I can't quote any numbers. And again, I'm no expert or anything, but from what I understand, synagogue attendance and synagogue membership in Reformed and conservative shuls are really, really going way down, and the fastest growing group of Jews are Jews who are Torah observant, or like myself, becoming Torah observant. And I don't think it would be any kind of a stretch to say that the one man responsible for most of the new growth in Torah observant Jews and Jews coming back to Torah observance would be the man behind me, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, a blessed memory. May his memory continue to give us an aliyah. The outreach that he had, the love that he had for Avos Yisrael, for all Jews, regardless of what your level of observance, regardless of your yearning. The Rebbe always stressed to his shluchim, to his emissaries that he sent out, a yid is a yid is a yid, and deserving of just as much love as the most incredible Talmud Bocher, the most incredible learned student or learned. It doesn't. We're all in essence a Jew and worthy of the same level of love. And the Rebbe showed that love repeatedly, and it's because of him that thousands and thousands of Jews are coming to Torah observance. The reason why I have come to Torah observance. And if you're in recovery or know anybody in recovery, you might recognize the phrase, it's a program of attraction and not promotion. I would just like to say there are some critics of Chabad Lubavitch who have said that they have an agenda that they push. I can only tell you my experience. My experience goes back to 1993. The first time I ever came in contact with a Chabad, with a Lubavitch Shluchim was in Hong Kong in 1993. I have had the pleasure of being able to daven in Chabad shuls around the world since then. Not once has any Chabad rabbi ever pushed any observance or even suggested that I do any observance. This has been all on my own, folks. I have seen what their lives are like, and I have decided that it's something I want. This was entirely my decision to do. So, but again, this is just I can only speak about my experience. So, I think that's basically it. Hopefully that explains to you how important Shabbat is. There's a beautiful saying, more than the Jew has kept Shabbat, it's Shabbat that has kept the Jew. It's one of the main things. I mean, it's the only positive mitzvah that's actually found in the Ten Commandments. Ritual positive mitzvah. I should be very careful about making sure I'm not making a mistake here. It's the only ritual positive commandment that's in the Ten Commandments, which means it's pretty darn important, right? And it's kept us going for thousands and thousands of years. I'll just show you one more thing. This is my great-great-grandfather, Oliver Sholem. His name was Shimon Goodman. He was a Yid. I didn't know a lot about him until recently. I can say with very, very firm confidence that given the area of Europe that he was from and the time frame that he immigrated to the United States, he was probably a Hasidic Yid, probably a Chassid, like I am, and also knowing about that area of Europe that he came from and that time frame, there's a very, very good chance that he was a Chabad Lubavitch Chassid as well, which makes an awful lot of sense to me in terms of this incredible pull and draw and love that I have found for Chabad Lubavitch and for the Rebbe. So hopefully you got something out of that. If you've managed to stick with me through this whole long thing, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy lives to watch this. Wow, 16 minutes long. I really, really need an editor. All right, thank you very much. I have 48 hours to finish packing, and then I'm heading to Europe for what will be my last tour with Tower of Power. I only have 3 more Shabboses that I have to work. Yasher Koach.